My name is Megan Carter, and the moment my mother shoved a custody modification packet across the Christmas dinner table and said, "Sign it. You can't be a mother and a savior at the same time," I felt my stomach drop so hard, I thought I might throw up right onto the ham. My son, Caleb, was 8, and sitting beside me in a borrowed sweater my sister picked out because it photographs better. His fork hovered over his mashed potatoes, like he could sense danger the way dogs sense storms. Across the table, my brother Dylan looked smug in a way that made my hands go cold, and my mum, my own mum, smiled like she was offering me dessert, not trying to take my child. "Just sign," she repeated, tapping the paper with her nail. "Temporary. Until your brother's back on his feet." Temporary. That was the word they used when they wanted something permanent. And the worst part? The packet already had my name typed in the right places, like they'd been planning this long before I walked through the door, with a pie and a forced smile. Trying to give Caleb one normal holiday, I stared at the signature line, then looked up at them, and realized something with brutal clarity. They weren't asking me to help, they were asking me to hand over my motherhood, like it was an extra coat taking up space on their chair. And for the first time in my life, I didn't swallow it. I slid the papers back across the table, pushed my chair away, and said, very calmly, "If you touch my custody, I'll bury you in court." My mum's smile twitched. My sister inhaled sharply. My brother laughed like I'd told a joke. Then Caleb whispered, barely audible, "Mum, are we leaving?" And my father, who'd been silent all night, staring into his wine like it had answers, finally looked up and said the sentence that turned my blood to ice. "Megan, don't do this. You'll make your son's life harder if you fight us. Us, not your brother, not your family, not a misunderstanding. Us. That's how I knew. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment request. This was a family decision. About my child. Without me. And the story of how we got to that table, how they wore down every boundary I built, how they turned my love into a lever, how they tried to rewrite my life like I was just a supporting character in theirs starts a year earlier, the day I became the only stable adult in their orbit. I'm a single mum in Cleveland, Ohio. Not the glossy Cleveland you see in travel articles, but the real one. Grey winters, lake-effect snow, potholes that could swallow a hubcap, and neighbours who still wave because they remember your kid's name. I work as a medical billing specialist for a clinic that sees a lot of older patients and a lot of complicated insurance plans. My job is basically translating chaos into paperwork and making sure people don't get destroyed by mistakes they don't understand. Which is funny, because that's also what I ended up doing for my family. Caleb's dad, Ryan, wasn't a monster. He wasn't even dramatic. He was just absent in the quietest, most painful way. The kind of man who says, "I'm trying," but always tries somewhere far away from you. When Caleb was 2, Ryan moved to Indiana for a job opportunity and promised he'd send money regularly. For the first few months, he did. Then it became random. Then it became excuses. Then it became silence. By the time Caleb turned 6, I stopped expecting anything from Ryan except a birthday text that would arrive a day late. And I built a life anyway. Not fancy, not easy, but ours. A 2-bedroom rental duplex in a neighbourhood that's mostly families and retirees. A second-hand couch I cleaned with baking soda when we moved in. A little kitchen table where Caleb does homework while I sort mail. My own emergency binder in a drawer. Medical records, school contacts, court papers. Because once you're a single mum long enough, you learn that life doesn't warn you before it hits. My family lived 25 minutes away, in a house that always smelled like laundry detergent and whatever casserole my mum was trying to improve. My parents were the kind of people who look stable from the outside. Church sometimes, big holiday dinners, photos on the mantel, the whole illusion. Inside, stability was selective. My brother Dylan was 2 years younger than me and had always been treated like a bright light with endless second chances. In high school, he got in trouble, and my mum called it a phase. In college, he dropped out, and my dad called it finding himself. In his 20s, he bounced between jobs and girlfriends, and business ideas, and my family called it ambition. If I made one mistake, missed a call, forgot a birthday card, said no too sharply, it became evidence that I was cold, or ungrateful. Dylan could set a room on fire, and they'd ask if he needed a blanket. When I got pregnant with Caleb, I wasn't married, and the disappointment in my mother's face didn't look like concern. It looked like inconvenience. Not because she hated Caleb. She adored him, especially when other people could see her being grandma. She loved having a kid to show off, a role to play, but she hated what my motherhood represented, that I wouldn't be as available, that I had priorities she couldn't reorder, that I had someone else to protect. At first, though, my family helped in the normal ways, babysitting when I was desperate, bringing food when I was sick, small gifts, small kindnesses. Then Dylan got into trouble. It started with a layoff, then a broken lease, then a DUI he swore was a misunderstanding, even though he admitted he'd had a couple beers, then a car accident that somehow wasn't his fault, then anxiety that made him unable to work, then depression that made him need support. I'm not mocking mental health. I believe in it. I've sat with my own anxiety at 2 a.m. while staring at bills and listening to my child breathe. But Dylan's mental health in our family became a pass that meant everyone else sacrifices, Dylan receives, and if anyone questions it, they're heartless. The first time I noticed the shift clearly was last spring, on a Sunday afternoon when my mum called me with that soft, sweet voice she used when she wanted something big. "Megan," she said, "honey, I need you to be flexible this week." My heart dropped immediately, because flexible, in my family, was code for your life is about to get rearranged. "What's going on?" I asked, already reaching for my calendar. "It's Dylan," she sighed. "He's overwhelmed. He got behind on some payments." "Payments for what?" There was a pause too long to be innocent. "His truck," she admitted. "And his rent." I felt my jaw tighten. "How far behind?" "Just enough that it's scary," she said quickly. "But you're so good with money. You understand these things. You can help him catch up." There it was, the assumption that my competence was community property. "I can't just..." I started. "Megan," she cut in, and her tone sharpened. "I'm not asking you to just do anything. This is your brother." I stared at Caleb's school artwork taped to my fridge. Crayon drawings, crooked letters, the word Mom written like it was sacred. "I'm his sister," I said carefully. "I'm also a single mum, and Dylan is struggling," she said. Like that ended the conversation. "What did Dylan say?" I asked. "He's embarrassed," she replied. "So don't bring it up like that. He needs support, not shame." So I did what I always did when my family pressed. I tried to find the smallest way to help without breaking myself. I offered to pay 1 month of his truck payment directly to the lender. No cash in his hands. No loan. That would evaporate. I told my mum it was a one-time thing. She thanked me like I'd just saved a life. Then, the next week, Dylan called me himself. "Hey Meg," he said, voice overly friendly. "Mum said you helped. I appreciate it." "You're welcome," I said cautiously. "So, I hate asking, but..." And there it was. The part where gratitude turns into appetite. "I can't," I said immediately. "I already helped." He sighed, like I was being dramatic. "It's not even that much. I just need a little buffer until I get this new job." "What new job?" I asked. Silence. Then he said, "It's lined up. I just haven't started yet." I could feel the lie in my bones. Dylan always had something lined up, right before he needed money. "No," I said, firm. "I'm not doing this." His voice cooled instantly. "Wow. Okay. I guess I know where I stand." "You stand as a grown man," I snapped before I could stop myself. "And I have a child." He laughed, short and ugly. "You always do this. You act like you're the only one with responsibilities." I almost said, "I am the only one paying my own bills." But I swallowed it, because I could already hear my mum saying, "Don't be harsh." So I hung up, hands shaking, and tried to forget it. But my family doesn't let you forget boundaries. Boundaries are like splinters to them, small, irritating, something they'll keep picking at until it bleeds. That summer, the pressure became a background hum. My sister Kayla started texting me little things. "Mum's stressed. Be patient. Dylan's trying. Don't trigger him. We're all family. Meg." Kayla was the middle child, the peacemaker. She worked part-time at a boutique, posted curated photos, and treated conflict like it was a stain you had to scrub immediately. She also had no kids, which meant she could afford to believe in peace, the way people believe in crystals. Pretty, comforting, not always rooted in reality. Then came the first big event, Caleb's back-to-school night. I had him in a clean polo, his hair brushed, his backpack new because I'd saved for it. He was excited, chattering about his teacher, his classroom, his new desk. My mum insisted on coming. "It's important," she said. "Family support." I actually liked that at first. Caleb loved having Grandma there. He held her hand in the hallway, like she was a celebrity. We were walking toward his classroom when I saw Dylan near the entrance, leaning against the wall like he was waiting for someone to notice him. He was wearing a button-down that didn't match his jeans, trying to look serious. He smiled when he saw me too confident. "Megan," he said loudly, like we were close. I stopped. "Dylan, what are you doing here?" He shrugged. "Supporting my nephew." My mum beamed. "Isn't that sweet?" But I saw the real reason a second later, when Dylan leaned closer and murmured, "Can we talk after?" My stomach sank. "About what?" He nodded toward the parking lot. "Just something." I looked at Caleb, wide eyes, excited smile, and forced my voice to stay light. "Not now." Dylan's smile tightened. "Okay. After. Inside the classroom." While Caleb showed my mum his cubby, Dylan texted me, "I'm in a bind. Don't make this weird." I didn't respond. After the event, as I was buckling Caleb into his car seat, Dylan appeared beside my car like a shadow. "Meg," he said, "I need you to co-sign something." I froze. "No." He blinked. "What? You didn't even hear it." "I heard enough," I said, keeping my voice low, because Caleb was right there. "I'm not co-signing anything." He scoffed. "It's not a big deal. It's just a personal loan. Small. To consolidate." "To consolidate what?" I demanded. He waved a hand. "Stuff. I'll pay it. I just need your credit." My mum walked up behind him and said, softly, "Megan, honey, this could really help him get stable." I stared at her. "Why can't you co-sign?" My mum's face tightened. "Our credit isn't ideal right now." And suddenly, everything clicked into place like a trap snapping shut. "Why isn't your credit ideal?" I asked, voice sharp. Dylan shifted, and my mum looked away. Kayla appeared, smiling too hard. "Guys, not here. Not here. Not in public. Not in front of the school. Not where someone might overhear the truth." I felt heat rising in my chest, the familiar mix of anger and nausea I got whenever my family tried to corner me. "No," I repeated clearer. "I'm not co-signing. Don't ask again." Dylan's eyes hardened. "So you'll let me fail?" I leaned closer, voice low enough that only he could hear. "You're failing yourself." He flinched like I'd slapped him. Then he smiled cold now. "Okay," he said. "Just remember you said no when you needed help." I watched him walk away, and something in me whispered, this isn't over, because Dylan doesn't hear no as a boundary. He hears it as a challenge. The fall went on. Money stayed tight. Caleb needed new shoes, school supplies, a dentist visit. I was doing my life like I always did, budgeting, planning, surviving. Then one Thursday in October, Kayla called me crying. "Megan," she said, "Mum and Dad might lose the house." My whole body went cold. "What?" "They're behind," she whispered. "Like, really behind." I sat down on my couch, Caleb's Lego pieces, scattered on the rug like little landmines. "How?" Kayla sniffed. "Dylan needed help and things piled up, and Dad took out something, and Mum didn't want you to worry, and..." "Kayla," I cut in, voice shaking. "Tell me the truth. Now." There was a long pause. Then she said, in a small voice, "Dad took out a home equity line for Dylan, and Dylan didn't pay what he promised. And now the payment is huge." My hands went numb. My parents had taken out debt on their house, the one stable asset they had, to keep Dylan afloat. And they hadn't told me until they were panicking. "Why are you telling me?" I whispered, even though I already knew. "Because Mum said you might be able to help," Kayla said quickly. "Just temporarily. Just to catch up. Then Dylan will start paying again." There it was again. Temporary. I closed my eyes and pictured Caleb asleep in his room. His stuffed dinosaur tucked under his arm. Pictured his school. His stability. His little life that depended entirely on me not collapsing. I can't, I said, and my voice cracked. I can't fund this. Kayla's voice sharpened, tears turning into frustration. So, you're just going to watch them lose the house? Kayla, I said, breathing hard. I'm a single mom. I rent. I don't have a secret vault of money. I have a budget. But you have a job, she snapped. And you're responsible. You always figure things out. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was sick. That's what you all think, I said quietly. That my responsibility belongs to everyone. Kayla went silent. Then she whispered, Mum's going to be devastated. And I knew what was coming next. The guilt campaign. It started slowly. My mum began texting more. We miss you. We need family time. Caleb deserves his uncle. Don't punish us. Then Dylan started showing up at places he knew I'd be. The grocery store near my apartment. The playground. Once, I pulled into my work parking lot and saw his truck in the far corner, like he'd been waiting. He approached my car with that practiced sad face he used when he wanted to look like the victim. Megan, he said, I'm not trying to fight. Then don't corner me, I snapped, glancing around. What do you want? He spread his hands. I want to fix things. With what? I demanded. More of my money? He flinched. You always make it about money. Because it is, I shot back. It's about the way you drain everyone and call it love. His eyes flashed. Wow, so you hate me. I don't hate you, I said, voice shaking. I hate what you do. He leaned closer. Then help me stop. I stared at him, disgusted by how he could make his own choices sound like my responsibility. Go to therapy, I said. Get a job. Stop lying. He laughed, short and bitter. Therapy costs money. So does taking out loans on Mum and Dad's house. I snapped. That made his face change. Because I'd said the quiet part out loud. He looked around, then lowered his voice. You don't understand what it's like. I understand exactly what it's like, I hissed. It's like being the only adult in the room while you play helpless. His jaw tightened. If you don't help, Mum's going to make sure Caleb knows you chose pride over family. I froze her, because that was new. That wasn't guilt. That was a threat. I stepped out of my car and stood up straight, forcing my voice to stay steady. Say Caleb's name like that again, I said, and you'll regret it. Dylan smiled, thin and mean. There she is, the tough single mum. Leave, I said. He didn't move, so I did something I'd never done before with Dylan. I pulled my phone out, lifted it between us, and hit record. His eyes widened slightly. What are you doing? He snapped. Protecting myself, I said, calm as ice. Now leave, or I call security. He stared at the phone, then at me, then backed away with a scoff. You're insane, he muttered. Maybe, I said, but I'm not stupid. He walked off, and I sat back in my car, shaking not from fear, but from adrenaline, because that moment taught me something. When I stopped playing the role they assigned me quiet, helpful, ashamed, they didn't soften. They escalated. A week later, my mum invited me to Thanksgiving planning. It'll be easier if we coordinate, she said. I want Caleb with us. That should have warmed me. It should have felt like normal family stuff. Instead, it felt like bait. But Caleb had been asking about Grandma. He loved her, because kids love the people who smile at them and give them cookies. He didn't see the manipulation. He didn't see the way my mother's affection came with invisible strings. So I agreed to come for a planning dinner in early November. I brought Caleb and a store-bought pie, because I'm always the kind of person who tries to show up with peace in my hands. My parents' house looked cozy. Leaves in the yard, porch light warm, the familiar smell of onions and butter. For a moment, I let myself pretend it was normal again. Caleb ran inside. Grandma, he shouted. My mum hugged him dramatically, like she'd been starving without him. There's my baby, she cooed. Grandma missed you so much. My dad patted Caleb's head. Hey, buddy. Kayla was already there, scrolling on her phone. Dylan wasn't, which made my shoulders loosen slightly. We sat at the table, My mum poured wine. She asked about Caleb's school. She laughed at his jokes too loudly. She did the performance of being a healthy family. Then she said, casually, "So I talked to an attorney." My heart stopped. "About what?" My mum waved a hand. "Just family stuff. Estate planning. You know, we're getting older." I stared at her. "Why are you telling me this?" She smiled, too calm. "Because you're family," Kayla chimed in, bright and rehearsed. "It's good, Meg. Mum and Dad are being responsible." Responsible, another word my family used, like perfume, to cover rot. My dad cleared his throat. "We've been thinking about the future," he said, not meeting my eyes. My stomach clenched. "Okay." My mum set her wine down carefully. "And we think it would be best if Caleb had more stability." The air changed. My skin prickled. "What does that mean?" I asked, voice low. My mum leaned forward. "Megan, honey, you're doing your best, but it's hard. You work a lot. You're always stressed. Caleb could benefit from more family support." My blood went cold. "What are you saying?" Kayla jumped in quickly. "Not like taking him away," she said, smiling nervously. "Just like shared custody vibes, so Mum and Dad can help more." Shared custody. Vibes. I felt like I was watching them try to sell me my own nightmare using soft words. "Are you out of your minds?" I whispered. My mum's face tightened. "Don't talk like that. I'm his mother." I snapped, and my voice rose despite myself. "I have sole custody, and you're overwhelmed," my dad said finally, voice firm. "We see it." I looked at him. "You see what you want to see." My mum's voice sharpened. "Megan, don't be defensive. We're trying to help." "No," I said, shaking now. "You're trying to control." Caleb was at the counter colouring, humming to himself, blissfully unaware that his entire life was being discussed like a project. I forced my voice lower. "Where is this coming from?" My mum's eyes flicked toward Kayla. Kayla stared at her phone harder. My dad's jaw clenched. And that's when I knew. This was Dylan. Dylan had planted this idea like a virus. "Did Dylan put you up to this?" I asked, voice deadly. My mum lifted her chin. "This isn't about Dylan." That was the confirmation. I stood up so fast my chair scraped. "Caleb," I called, forcing cheer into my tone. "Buddy, grab your jacket." My mum stood too. "Megan, sit down." "No," I said. "I'm leaving." My dad stepped in front of me slightly, like he could block me with his body. "Don't make this a scene." I laughed sharp, disbelieving. "A scene? You just suggested changing my custody, like it's a family calendar." My mum's voice went cold. "If you won't accept help, we may have to do what's best for Caleb." My throat tightened. "Try it," Kayla whispered, panicked. "Megan," I grabbed Caleb's coat from the hook. My hands shook so much the zipper wouldn't catch. Caleb looked up at me. "Mum, what's wrong?" I crouched, forcing my face soft. "Nothing's wrong with you, baby. We're just going home." My mum stepped closer, voice sugary again. "Caleb, sweetheart, do you want to spend more time here? Grandma has a room for you." Caleb hesitated, because he's a kid, and cookies are powerful. I stood up, eyes locked on my mum. "Don't you dare." My dad sighed, like I was exhausting him. "Megan, you're being emotional, because you're threatening my child." I snapped, and that's when my mother's mask slipped enough for me to see the real thing underneath. "You wouldn't be in this position if you'd chosen better," she hissed. "If you'd married Ryan, if you'd kept a proper family." My vision blurred with rage. "Don't talk about my life like it's a mistake," I said, voice shaking. "The only mistake I made was thinking you'd protect me." I took Caleb's hand and walked out. In the car, Caleb was quiet for a minute, then said softly, "Grandma mad?" I swallowed hard. "Grandma is confused." He nodded, then asked the question that nearly split me open. "Is Grandma going to take me?" I gripped the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. "No," I said, firm. "No one is taking you." But as I drove home, my brain was already doing what it does, under threat, organizing, planning, protecting. That night, after Caleb fell asleep, I pulled out my emergency binder. I found the custody order. I read it 3 times. I checked every clause. I looked up legal resources. I searched local family law attorneys. I didn't want war, but I could feel my family loading the guns. 2 days later, my mum texted me. We need to talk. Calmly, like adults. Then she added, "You're not keeping Caleb from us." That's cruel. That's how they framed it. Like my boundaries were violence. The next week, Kayla showed up at my apartment unannounced. She stood in my doorway, holding a bag of muffins like she was doing charity. "Megan," she said, "please don't blow this up." I stared at her. "You mean don't defend myself?" Kayla's eyes filled. "Mum is stressed. Dad is stressed. Dylan is a mess. We're all drowning." I crossed my arms. "Then stop letting Dylan drag you under." Kayla flinched. "He's our brother, and Caleb is my son," I said. "And Mum is talking about custody, like it's a group decision." Kayla stepped inside, voice urgent. "It's not like they want to steal him. They just think you need support. And Dylan needs help." There it was again. Dylan. Always. I laughed bitterly. "So the plan is to take my kid part-time, so I can work more to pay for Dylan?" Kayla's face tightened. "Don't say it like that." "Like what?" I demanded. "Accurate." Kayla lowered her voice. "Dylan is facing something serious." My stomach clenched. "What?" Kayla hesitated, then said, "He owes money, not just to the bank." My skin went cold. "To who?" Kayla looked away. "People." That single vague word made my blood run cold, in a way my family's drama never had before. "You're telling me my brother is in debt to people, and your solution is to mess with my custody?" I whispered. Kayla's voice cracked. "He said, if we don't help, they'll come after him." I felt a sharp flash of fear, but not for Dylan, for Caleb. Because if Dylan was tangled with dangerous people, my family's house wasn't just manipulative, it was unsafe. "Get out," I said quietly. Kayla blinked. "What?" "Kayla, I love you," I said, voice shaking. "But if you're bringing this into my home, you're endangering my child." "Get out." Kayla's face crumpled. "Megan, out," I repeated, firmer. She left crying, and I locked my door. That weekend, I did something I'd never done. I spoke to Ryan, not because I wanted him back, not because I trusted him, because I needed a backup plan. Ryan answered on the third ring, voice sleepy. "Meg, we need to talk," I said flatly. "He see who? Is Caleb okay?" "Yes," I said, "but my family is threatening custody stuff, and I need you to be aware." There was a pause. Then he said, cautiously, "Are you in trouble?" "I'm in a situation," I replied, "and you need to know, if anything ever happens, Caleb stays with me, not my parents." Ryan's voice got sharper. "Why would he go to them?" "Because they're trying to position themselves like they're the stable option," I said, and my throat tightened on the word stable. "And because Dylan is in debt and dragging them down." Ryan went quiet. Then he said, surprisingly serious, "Do you need me to come to court?" I blinked. "What?" "If they file something, I can show up," he said. "I can say you're a good mom." I didn't trust him, but I filed that away like a tool. "Thank you," I said carefully. "Just be ready." After that call, I sat in silence and realized something that made me dizzy. I was building a defense plan with my child's mostly absent father, because my own parents had become a threat. That's how twisted it had gotten. Then came December, the holiday season, the time when my family loved to stage togetherness and pretend we were fine. My mom started pushing for Christmas dinner, harder than ever. "It's important," she insisted. "Caleb needs tradition." What she meant was, Caleb was the leverage. I tried to avoid it. I offered to drop presents off. I offered a short visit. I offered anything that didn't put us under their roof for hours. My mom refused. "It's Christmas dinner," she said, voice sharp. "If you don't come, you're proving you're selfish." So, I agreed. One dinner, I told myself I'd stay alert, keep it short, leave at the first sign of pressure. I didn't know they'd already prepared the paperwork. And now we're back at that table, Christmas dinner, the custody packet. My mother's nail tapping the signature line like she was tapping the lid of a coffin. I stood there with Caleb beside me, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. And I realized the old rules in my family were over. The old Megan would have tried to negotiate. The old Megan would have tried to keep peace. But peace with predators isn't peace. It's surrender. So I took a breath, picked up my purse, and said, "We're leaving." My mum's voice snapped. "Sit down." "No," I said. Dylan laughed, leaning back. "Look at her, acting like a hero." I turned to him slowly. "This is you." He spread his hands. "It's not me. It's reality. You can't handle everything. Mom and Dad can." I stared at him. "You're in debt to people." "Dylan, tell me, are those people safe around my son?" My dad's face went white. My mum's eyes widened. Kayla's hand flew to her mouth. Dylan's smile faltered for the first time. "Who told you that?" he snapped. "So that was the truth. Not what are you talking about? Who told you?" I nodded slowly. "It's true." My mum jumped in fast, voice trembling. "Megan, don't be dramatic." "Don't." I cut her off, voice sharp. "Don't you dare call me dramatic while you're trying to take my child to pay off Dylan's mess." My father stood up, anger flashing. "Lower your voice." "No," I said. "I spent my whole life lowering my voice so you could keep pretending. I'm done." Caleb gripped my hand tighter. "Mum," I looked down at him, forced my face soft. "We're okay. We're leaving." My mum lunged forward, not physically, but emotionally, voice syrupy again. "Caleb, sweetheart, Grandma loves you. You want to stay and open presents?" And that's when Dylan did the thing that made my stomach drop. He looked directly at Caleb and said, "Buddy, if you stay here more, Grandma and Grandpa won't be so stressed. Your mum makes them stressed." I saw red. That's not metaphor. That's literal. My vision narrowed. My skin went hot. And I felt something primal rise in me. "Do not speak to my child," I said, voice shaking with fury. Dylan smirked. "He deserves to know the truth." I stepped toward Dylan, close enough that he finally stopped smiling. "You want truth?" I said quietly. "Here's truth. You're not taking my kid. You're not using my kid. And you're not hiding behind Mom and Dad anymore." My mum's voice went shrill. "Megan, stop. You're ruining Christmas." I stared at her. "You already did." Then I grabbed the custody packet off the table, not to sign it, but to hold it up. "This," I said, loud enough for everyone, "is a legal attempt to change custody. This is not help. This is a threat." My dad's face tightened. "Put that down!" "Why?" I asked. "You don't want Caleb to remember this. Or you don't want anyone else to know." Kayla whispered. "Please," Dylan barked. "Give me that." He reached for it, and I did something that shocked even me. I yanked the packet back and said, "Touch me, and I call the police." The room went still. Dylan's eyes flashed with rage. My mother looked like she'd been slapped. And my father looked at Dylan like he was seeing him clearly for the first time. Because Dylan had moved like a man who expected to take what he wanted, like a man who'd done it before. I backed away, still holding Caleb's hand, and headed toward the door. My mum followed, voice pleading now. "Megan, please, don't do this. We can talk. We can fix it." I turned back one last time. "Here's what you're going to do," I said, voice steady. "You're going to stop. You're going to stop trying to move my child around like a chess piece. And if you don't, I will file for a protection order, and I will bring this packet to my attorney, and I will expose exactly why you wanted custody." My mum's lips trembled. "You wouldn't." I stared at her. "Try me." Then I left. Outside, snow was falling in that soft Ohio way that makes everything look peaceful, even when it isn't. Caleb climbed into the car, buckled himself, and then looked at me with wet eyes. "Mum," he whispered, "did I do something wrong?" My heart cracked. "No," I said immediately, leaning over to cup his face gently. "You did nothing wrong. You're perfect. Adults are being wrong." He sniffed. "Are we okay?" I swallowed hard. "We're more than okay. We're together, and I will always choose you." That was the night I stopped hoping my family would change, and started making sure they couldn't hurt us. The next morning, I called an attorney. Her name was Marissa Feldman, and her office was in a brick building downtown with fluorescent lights and the kind of carpet that had seen too many divorces. She listened without interrupting, while I told her everything. The co-sign pressure, the home equity debt, the custody talk, the packet, Dylan's debt to people. When I finished, she leaned back, and said, "First, you're not crazy. Second, we document everything. Third, they can't just take custody because they want it." I exhaled shakily. "Then why does it feel like they can?" "Because they're counting on you being scared," she said bluntly. "And because families like this use guilt like rope." She told me what to do. Keep texts. Record interactions if legal. Avoid letting Caleb be alone with them. Notify the school. Tighten emergency contacts. And most importantly, prepare for the possibility that they'd file something to intimidate me. I left her office with a checklist and a knot in my stomach. Because a checklist is comforting, but it also means you're really in this. That week, my mother started calling non-stop. I didn't answer. Dylan texted me, "You're making a huge mistake." I didn't respond. Kayla sent long messages about forgiveness and family and how Mom was heartbroken. I kept them. Screenshotted. Saved. Then my dad texted me something that made my blood freeze. "We're coming to Caleb's school to talk to the principal. We need to make sure they know we're involved grandparents." Involved grandparents. The phrase sounded harmless. It wasn't. I called the school immediately and updated the authorized pickup list. I informed them that only I had custody and that no one else was permitted to remove Caleb without my written consent. I sent a copy of my custody order. Then I sat in my car in the parking lot, shaking, and realized how quickly your life can become a defense strategy. 2 days later, I got the confirmation that my family was serious. A deputy knocked on my door at 6:40 p.m. while Caleb was doing homework. My stomach dropped as soon as I saw the uniform. "Miss Carter?" he asked politely. "Yes," I said, voice tight. He held out an envelope. "You've been served." Caleb looked up from the table, eyes wide. "Mom?" he whispered. My hands went cold as I took the envelope. I forced a smile I didn't feel. "It's okay, baby," I said. "Go finish your math." After the deputy left, I opened the envelope with shaking fingers. Motion for emergency temporary custody, filed by my parents, with Dylan listed as a supporting witness. I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I turned the page and saw the allegations. Megan is overwhelmed and unstable. Megan works too much and neglects Caleb. Megan is emotionally volatile. Megan is isolating Caleb from family. Caleb would be safer with grandparents temporarily. Temporarily. There it was again, dressed up in legal font. My hands shook with rage, because they weren't even trying to be subtle. They were trying to rewrite me into a stereotype. Unstable single mum, emotional, unfit. And the twist, the part that made my blood run cold, was the attached evidence. A printed photo of me outside the school that day. Dylan cornered me, with my phone held up. They'd labelled it, Megan threatening and recording people in public. Paranoid behaviour. My skin went ice cold. They weren't just attacking me. They were weaponizing my attempts to protect myself as proof I was unwell. I called Marissa immediately. She didn't sound surprised. "They did exactly what I thought," she said. "Okay, we respond. And Megan, we're going to make them regret filing this." "How?" I whispered, even though my voice wanted to scream. "With truth," she said. "And with evidence that doesn't require anyone to believe you." So I became what my family never expected me to become. A woman who keeps receipts. I started gathering everything. Bank statements showing the money I'd paid directly to Dylan's lender. Screenshots of Dylan's texts. Kayla's confession about the people Dylan owed. My dad's text about going to the school. The photo they used because it proved Dylan had been there. Then I did the hard part. I started looking for the thing my family was hiding behind all of this. The real reason. Because people don't try to take custody for fun. They do it for leverage. They do it for control. They do it when they're desperate. And my family was desperate. I found the clue in a place I almost didn't check. My mum's favourite church friend, Mrs. Haskins, who loves gossip the way some people love oxygen. She called me 3 days after I was served. Voice concerned. "Oh, Megan," she sighed. "I heard you're having a hard time." I went still. "You heard that from who?" "Mothers talk," she said vaguely. "We worry." I could have hung up. Instead, I forced my voice calm. "Mrs. Haskins, why are they doing this?" She hesitated. Then she whispered, like it hurt her to say it. "Because your dad's been borrowing. A lot. And the bank, well, someone said the house might be in jeopardy." My throat tightened. Because of Dylan? She made a soft sound. Honey, not just Dylan. What else? I pressed. Another pause. Then she said, your father signed something to guarantee Dylan's debt. And now they're saying if Dylan can't pay, they can take the house. And your mum's been panicking. I felt like my body turned to stone. Guarantee, I whispered. With who? Mrs. Haskins didn't know details, or pretended not to, but she said one sentence that made the whole picture sharpen. Your mum said, if they had Caleb more, you'd have more time to work, and then you could help them catch up. There it was. The entire plan. Take Caleb, temporarily, so I could work more, so I could pay more. They were literally trying to convert my child into a financial strategy. I thanked Mrs. Haskins politely, hung up, and sat on my kitchen floor with my hands over my mouth. Then I did something that scared me but also steadied me. I emailed Marissa everything, including the new information, and Marissa replied with 3 words. We counterattack hard. The court hearing was scheduled for mid-January. In the weeks leading up to it, my family launched a campaign. Kayla posted photos of Caleb from last year, with captions like, missing my nephew. My mum started telling people at church that I was struggling and refusing help. Dylan texted me ons, if you don't stop, you'll regret it. I saved it. Then something happened that I didn't expect. Ryan, Caleb's dad, called me. I got a message from your mum, he said, voice uneasy. She said you're unstable, that she might need me to support her petition. My blood went cold. What did you say? I didn't answer, he said quickly. But, Megan, are you okay? I swallowed hard, anger burning. I'm fine. They're lying. Ryan exhaled. I figured. Your mum never texted me before. That almost made me laugh. Because of course, she didn't, until she needed him as a tool. Will you come to court? I asked quietly. There was a pause. Then Ryan said, yeah, I'll come. I didn't trust him fully, but his presence mattered. A biological parent showing up to support me undercut my family's narrative that I was alone and unfit. And then the twist, because every family war has a twist, arrived in the form of a voicemail from an unknown number. A man's voice, rough and impatient. Megan Carter? He asked. Yes, I said cautiously when I called back. This is Mr. Landry, he said. I'm calling regarding Dylan Carter's outstanding balance. Your number was listed as an alternative contact. My stomach dropped through the floor. My number is not his contact, I said, voice shaking. Remove it, he snorted. Lady, I don't care who you are to him. He owes, and if you want your parents' house to stay standing, you might want to tell your brother to stop hiding. My throat went tight. What are you talking about? Landry laughed, low and ugly. You'll find out soon enough. He hung up. I stared at my phone like it was a live grenade. Because now I had confirmation. Dylan wasn't just behind on a car payment. He was in debt to someone who was willing to call me directly. And my parents were trying to bring Caleb into that house more. I forwarded the voicemail to Marissa. She called me immediately. We're going to use this, she said. Carefully. Can we? I whispered. It's just a call. It's proof the environment is unsafe. She replied. And it supports motive. They're doing this for financial reasons tied to Dylan. The night before the hearing, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table and watched Caleb breathe on the baby monitor like he was still a toddler, even though he wasn't. I watched the rise and fall of his chest and felt rage like a pulse. Not just at my family, at myself, for every time I'd given in, for every time I'd tried to keep peace, at the cost of my spine. I promised myself one thing. In court, I wouldn't sound like a woman begging to keep her child. I would sound like a mother describing facts. The morning of the hearing, the courthouse smelled like old paper and stale coffee. The hallway was packed with people in suits, and people in jeans, and people holding manila folders like their lives were inside. My parents were there, dressed like saints. My mum wore pearl earrings and a soft cardigan like she was auditioning for Concerned Grandmother. My dad wore his nicest coat and looked tired, real tired. But he stood beside my mum like he'd been trained. Kayla sat behind them, eyes red. And Dylan showed up late, wearing a suit that didn't fit right, smiling like he enjoyed this. He winked at me as he walked in. I felt my hand shake. Marissa touched my elbow gently. "Don't look at him," she murmured. "Look forward." Ryan arrived too, looking awkward in a borrowed tie. He sat behind me, not close enough to feel like comfort, but close enough to be visible. When our case was called, we walked into a small courtroom that felt too ordinary for something this enormous. The judge was a woman with sharp eyes and a voice that didn't care about anyone's performance. My parents' attorney spoke first. He painted me like a woman unraveling, overworked, emotional, alienating, paranoid because I recorded my brother, unstable because I refused family support. Then Marissa stood, and Marissa did not play nice. She laid out the custody order. She laid out my consistent employment, Caleb's attendance records, his grades, letters from his teacher about my involvement, proof of my stable housing, my budget, my childcare arrangements. Then she brought out the custody packet my mother had tried to make me sign at Christmas, presented as evidence that my parents had premeditated this. My mum's face tightened. Then Marissa did the thing that made the room change temperature. She introduced the voicemail from Mr. Landry. She didn't play it dramatically. She played it like evidence. The rough voice filled the courtroom. "If you want your parents' house to stay standing." My father went pale. My mother's lips trembled. The judge's eyes narrowed. Marissa spoke calmly. "Your Honor, this demonstrates the real motive. The petitioners are facing financial threats tied to their adult son's debts. They sought increased access to the child, not for the child's welfare, but to increase Ms. Carter's capacity to work and pay." My parents' attorney objected. "Speculation." Marissa didn't flinch. "Then let's remove speculation. We subpoena the petitioner's mortgage and home equity records, and Mr. Carter's financial agreements, and we see whether their household is stable enough to claim this child would be safer there." The judge leaned forward slightly. "I would like to see those records." My mum's attorney started to speak, but the judge lifted a hand. "Mrs. Carter," the judge said, looking directly at my mother, "why did you file this motion?" My mum's eyes filled instantly, tears on command. Perfectly placed. "Your Honor," she whispered, "we love Caleb. Megan she's overwhelmed. She's shutting us out. We just want to help." The judge looked at her for a long moment. Then she asked quietly, "Is your home facing foreclosure or related financial instability?" My mother froze. My father's jaw clenched hard. Dylan stared at the ceiling like he was bored. And Kayla started crying quietly in the back. My mum tried to smile. "No, Your Honor, it's..." The judge's tone sharpened. "Answer the question." My mother swallowed, then whispered, "We've had some challenges." The judge turned to my father. "Mr. Carter?" My dad's voice came out rough. "Yes, we're behind." The judge's gaze moved to Dylan. "And are those challenges related to your son, Dylan?" Dylan smirked. "I don't see what that has to do." "Answer," the judge snapped. Dylan's smile faltered. He looked at my mother, then said, "They chose to help me. It's not my fault if Megan is..." The judge cut him off. "Your debt is causing instability in their home." Dylan's jaw tightened. "People have debt." The judge stared at him. "Do you owe money to individuals who have threatened your family?" Silence. My stomach twisted. Dylan laughed weakly. "No." Marissa spoke quietly. "Your Honor, we have a call from a collector threatening the petitioner's home." The judge's face hardened. Then she looked at me. "Miss Carter," she said, voice steady. "Are you asking the court for anything today, besides denial of this motion?" My heart pounded. Marissa nodded slightly, permission. "Yes," I said, voice shaking but clear. "I'm asking that my parents and Dylan have no unsupervised contact with my son until this is resolved, because I believe my child is being used as leverage." The courtroom went still. My mother gasped softly, like I'd stabbed her. My dad looked like he'd been punched. Dylan's eyes flashed with fury. The judge stared at the papers, then at my parents, then at Dylan. And then she said the sentence that felt like oxygen after drowning. "Emergency temporary custody is denied." My knees almost buckled with relief, but she didn't stop. She added, "Furthermore, given the evidence of financial instability and potential external threats, I am ordering that any visitation between the child and petitioners be supervised at a court-approved centre until further review." My mum made a strangled sound. Dylan stood up, furious. "That's ridiculous." The judge's gaze snapped to him. "Sit down, sir, or I'll hold you in contempt." Dylan sat, My mother started crying openly now, but it didn't move the judge. "Miss Carter," the judge said to me, "you will provide the court with updates if any harassment occurs, and I strongly suggest you consider a civil protection order if threats escalate." I nodded, tears burning my eyes. When we left the courtroom, my mum rushed toward me in the hallway. "Megan," she sobbed, "how could you do this to us?" I stared at her. "How could you do this to Caleb?" I shot back, voice low and shaking. "You tried to take him." My dad stepped forward, voice tight. "We were trying to survive, and you chose my child as your life raft," I said. "That's unforgivable." Dylan shoved closer, eyes blazing. "You think you won?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I think you're about to lose everything," he scoffed. "You can't touch me." I smiled, small, cold, not happy. "Watch me," I said, because here's what my family didn't understand. They'd made this legal, which meant I didn't have to protect their feelings anymore. I could protect my son with the full weight of the system. Over the next month, Marissa helped me file for a civil protection order based on Dylan's harassment and the creditor threat. We also filed motions to compel financial disclosures from my parents in the custody case, because now their stability was part of the record, and that's when the second twist hit. The disclosures revealed my father had signed as a guarantor on a private loan Dylan took out one with brutal terms. It wasn't just people. It was a shady lending operation that operated on intimidation and fear. Worse, the paperwork listed my parents' house and my father's retirement account and a backup contact number. Mine. They had put me in it without asking, without telling me, without caring what it meant for Caleb and me. Marissa's eyes were cold when she said, "That's fraud adjacent at best, and it's evidence they use you as a resource." We took it to the judge as part of our ongoing custody defense, and we filed a complaint with the lender's licensing board. Then I did the hardest thing. I called my father alone. Not my mum, not Kayla, just my dad. He answered, voice exhausted. "Megan, why did you put my number on that contract?" I asked, voice flat. He went quiet, then he whispered, "Your mother said you'd help if it got bad." I felt something in my chest go numb. "She volunteered my safety," I said. "My child's safety." My dad's voice cracked. "We didn't think." "That's the problem," I snapped. "You never think about me as a person. You think of me as a solution." He didn't answer. I swallowed hard. "Dad, you need to get out from under Dylan." He laughed bitterly. "How? He's our son. And Caleb is my son," I said, voice shaking. "You chose Dylan over him." My father's silence was the answer, and that's when I made my final decision. I stopped fighting to get my family back, and started building a life that didn't include them. I moved, not far still in Cleveland, still near Caleb's school, but far enough that my family couldn't casually drop by. I didn't tell them the address. I filed it confidentially in court. I installed cameras. I updated Caleb's school again. I changed my phone number and gave the new one only to the people who needed it. And I told Caleb the truth, in the only way an 8-year-old can carry. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that aren't safe, and our job is to be safe. He nodded seriously, like he understood more than I wanted him to. And then, in March, Karma arrived wearing a badge. Dylan got arrested. Not for anything dramatic, like a movie, no shootout, no chase. He got picked up on a warrant after a traffic stop. The lender situation had triggered an investigation into unlicensed lending and intimidation practices. Dylan, being Dylan, had gotten tangled deeper than he admitted. When I heard the news, I didn't feel joy. I felt release, because for the first time, Dylan couldn't call, couldn't threaten, couldn't manipulate my parents through panic. My mother called me from a blocked number the day after Dylan's arrest. I answered because my gut told me it was important. "Megan," she sobbed, "please, we need you." I stared at my kitchen wall, at the little magnet holding Caleb's spelling test, and felt my heart harden. "What do you need?" I asked coldly. "We need help with a lawyer," she cried. "We're going to lose everything. Your father." "Stop," I cut in. "You tried to take my child. I was scared," she gasped. "And I was protecting my son," I snapped. "You don't get to ask me for anything ever again." Her voice turned sharp through the tears. "So you're abandoning us?" I laughed one short, humorless sound. "No, I'm finally doing what you taught me." I'm choosing what's best for Caleb. My mum's voice went icy. He'll hate you when he's older, for keeping him from family. I didn't flinch. Then I'll tell him the truth, I said. I'll tell him family is supposed to protect you, and when they don't, you protect yourself, she whispered. Megan. I ended the call. A week later, Kayla texted me from a new number. Mom is spiraling. Dad is broken. Please, just talk to them. I replied once. Supervised visits only. Court center. That's it. Kayla didn't respond. And that was my line. Because here's the thing about being the responsible one. People don't thank you when you save them. They just get used to you bleeding. My parents ended up selling their house to cover what they could. They moved into a small apartment. Dylan's legal mess dragged on. My mum told people I abandoned them. Kayla stayed in the middle until the middle finally broke her too. But Caleb? Caleb started sleeping better after we moved. He stopped asking if Grandma would take him. He started laughing more at dinner. He started inviting friends over without me worrying that my family would show up. And for the first time in years, our home felt like a home, not a battlefield. One warm afternoon in May, Caleb came home from school with a Mother's Day card he'd made himself. The front had a stick figure drawing of us holding hands. Inside, in crooked letters, he wrote, Mum, thank you for choosing me. I sat on the edge of his bed and cried quietly while he played with Legos, unaware that he'd just healed something in me, because that was a lesson my family never wanted to learn. Love doesn't mean unlimited access. Love means protection. And sometimes, protecting your child means walking away from the people who think your love is their supply. I didn't get a perfect family ending. I got something better. A safe one. A quiet one. A future that belongs to us. And if my family ever wonders why I stopped answering, why I stopped showing up, why I stopped letting them rewrite me, they can look at the court record. They can look at the custody packet they tried to slide across a Christmas table. They can look at my son, steady, thriving, loved, and understand the truth I finally accepted. I didn't lose my family. I escaped a system that wanted to own me, and I chose my child. Every time.